Hello, everyone. Is the Prophet Michael David, aka Aries, and I hope everyone's having a great day. Okay, I'll address the thumbnail of this video later on this discussion, but as far as the title of the video, this isn't working. Yeah, it really isn't working. It's been over a year now. It doesn't mean I'm not going to stop making YouTube videos because I am. It's a good archive for the things that I've done. The difference is I'm not going to have any more intricate videos where I do a bunch of screenshots and talk about a bunch of math stuff with the screenshots because that is lowbrow as this YouTube video is. It's just because I have like an almost infinite amount of ideas popping in my head every single day and I got to make some decisions about it. But I can't, at this point, I can't afford to spend hours developing a YouTube video that only gets five views. So that's really all I mean about the title. Still going to do YouTube videos. They're just probably going to be spaced out farther apart, and they're all going to be dialogue. Even if I reference mathematical formulas, you just got to look them up. I'm not going to screenshot them for you anymore. So, what is exactly my new plan of action? Well, all of my miracles are mathematical, and I've done them all within the last calendar year, mostly, and most of it in the last 6 months. But not everyone is mathy, and when you only get five views, your chances of getting a mathematician that's actually going to understand it and pass it on is slim. So I got to go to the source. I'm not quite sure why I did this before, just probably was veiled. But my new plan of action is I started looking up like MathSciNet and everything in the American Mathematical Society because, there are cash prizes for some of the stuff, including the collets. And that's what I'm going to start with because that's the thing I smashed the hardest. And so I'm going to go on these websites, and there was one actual gentleman from the American Mathematical Society that was actually very helpful, the most helpful person I've talked to in the last like multiple years. And he's the one that recommended that, just to get feelers, even before I write a paper, to make sure to let it get vetted by the public math nerds, that I posted on Archive, ARXIV, and or mathoverflow.org or net or whatever it is. So that's what I plan to do. I'm later on today. I'm working on like a paper to do it. But in the rest of this video, again, just verbally dialogue, I'm going to explain what I'm going to put in the video. And so as this video can act as like a proof of concept or, that this was my plan all along and I actually did it. So when those people inevitably come back to my YouTube video, because my screen name is going to be Apollonius of Westchester. So eventually they will get to this YouTube video, but obviously this YouTube channel isn't all about maths, since I call myself a prophet in the first 10 seconds of every video, which is probably why I only have 16 subscribers. Okay, so now as proof of concept in like a video saying that I'm going to do exactly what I'm going to do here in the near future, I'm going to describe what I'm going to put on these websites as far as the content. Like I said, I'm going to start with Collett's conjecture because I smashed that the hardest. I got my algorithm, which is very helpful. So say title of the video is Collett's conjecture solution, Apollonius of Westchester. And then I'm going to start out by saying, um, you know, whenever I talk to somebody that thinks they know a lot about the Collett's conjecture, aka the Collett's game, my first question would be for them is in the infinite amount of Collett's games, in any singular game, no matter how long or short, what is the maximum number of 3 mod 6 numbers that you will ever see in that sequence? And if you've watched some of my other videos and understand it, you will understand that the answer is one, but almost nobody will be able to knows that right off the bat. I do, and you do, but they don't. So then I'm going to go into like an abstract of saying like the Collett's game is really not about the infinite connections of all the natural numbers up to infinity. It's actually a real simple game about the connections between the 6 mod 6 lines. 1 mod 6, 2 mod 6, 3 mod 6, 4 mod 6, 5 mod 6. We've talked about these before. As a prime number theorist and a genometer, these are the ones I use the most, and it was probably not a coincidence that the college game is based on this. And my algorithm, which again I've posted many times before, but I'm not here, basically shows that that is the interaction between the mod lines, which are lines of numbers, not singular numbers themselves. So then I'm going to describe that the two conditions that you need to satisfy to totally solve the Collitz's conjecture are, number one, you have to prove that there's no infinite loops that the game can get into except for the 4, 2, 1 loop. Or as I put it, the 4 mod 2, 2 mod 2, 4 mod 6, 2 mod 6, 1 mod 6 loop. And then the second constraint that you have to explain to solve the conjecture is that you have to explain why there aren't any divergent series that just go to infinity. They never go back down to 1. They just keep going 3x plus 1, only divided by 2, up to infinity, or combinations of that. Anyway, you have to prove that the Collitz's game can't go to infinity, that there are no divergent series at all. So to address the infinite loop question, as I've described before on this YouTube channel, I'm just going to say that according to the algorithm, which is the interaction between the mod lines, there's only 3 loops that numbers really could get in. And that's the 6 mod 6, going back to the 6 mod 6 loop, the 4 mod 6 to the 2 mod 6 to the 5 mod 6 loop, or the 4 mod 6 to the 2 mod 6 to the 1 mod 6 loop. There's only 3 different loops. All right, firstly, the 4 mod 6 to the 2 mod 6 to the 1 mod 6, that's the 4, 2, 1. That's what all Collitz's games get looped into, so we can just ignore that one for now. But what about the other ones? Well, let's start at the 6 mod 6 to 6 mod 6 loop. Well, all that's doing is divided by 2, and the number's still even, so it's just going to loop back on 6 over and over. But that loop is always decreasing. But it can only decrease a finite number of times until it gets down to 6, which is OG 6 mod 6. And 6 divided by 2 is 3, which goes to OG 3 mod 6. And then 3 times 3 plus 1 is 10, which goes to 4 mod 6. So it can only loop a finite number of times on the 6 mod 6 loop. All right, now the 4 mod 6, where the last example ended up, to the 2 mod 6, to the 5 mod 6. Why can't it loop there? Well, that is a 3x plus 1 divided by 2 divided by 2. So that's 3x1 divided by 4 loop, which means as long as x is over 1, that loop is also decreasing. So that loop will always decrease as long as x is over 1 until it gets down to 5, the OG 5 mod 6 loop. And then that's where a lot of Collitz's games end. Most do, like 95%, because 5 times 3 plus 1 is 16, 4 mod 6. 16 divided by 2 is 8, 2 mod 6. 8 divided by 2 is 4 mod 6, OG 4 mod 6. 4 divided by 2 is 2, OG 2 mod 6. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1, OG 1 mod 6. So the 4 mod 6, 2 mod 6, 5 mod 6 is also decreasing and can only loop a finite amount of times and eventually goes to the 4, 2, 1 loop. All right, so that handles the loop conditions and why the only infinite loop that the Collitz's game can get into is the 4 mod 6 to 2 mod 6 to 1 mod 6 loop. But the other question is there any configurations where the game can go to infinity and then, it never actually goes back down to 1? And no, it can't do that either. The simplest argument is just because every number up to infinity has a mod 6, and so the numbers can never get off the paper. But a better argument than that is I did a statistical analysis on, like, if you were trying to construct a chain of numbers that just went up 3x plus 1 divided by 2 once, those numbers are always going to grow. So, I tried to make these chains of 3x plus 1 divided by 2 only once to see what happens. And as I've showed in other videos, Yes, you can form chains like that and you can get them arbitrarily long, but they're always finite. They're always finite. There will always be a longer chain than that one. You just have to pick a larger seed number. And in that way, it shows that no matter what odd number you pick, it's always going to, even if it's that perfect number that has a lot of 3x plus 1s only down 2 and continues to like look like it's going divergent, that eventually that chain will end and then it'll have to contend with the other, 3x plus 1 divided by 4 divided by 8 divided by 16. Now, those two arguments, along with the screenshots that I will show, both of the algorithm and the chains showing limited length, no matter how big they get, does solve the conjecture. But just to add a cherry on top, I'm going to show some examples that show pure Kurt Gödel. Look him up if you want to, but he's famously quoted for saying in mathematics, no matter what maths you use, there are some things that you know to be true, but you cannot prove. And so I came up with these thought experiments using my knowledge of the Collatz in showing expertise of two thought of experiments about the Collatz game that border right on, it's pure Kurt Gödel, but it borders right on a P versus NP argument as well, or solution. Again, look it up if you want to. It's another one of the Millennial Prizes. Okay, my first example is absurd, but it is at least calculable, I think. But it just shows, mastery of the Collatz conjecture and how to do exactly what I just explained, trying to find a divergent series. All right, here it is. And this is going to be a riddle. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. So if you wanted to create a Collatz game that looks divergent, it just goes 3x plus 1 only divided by 2, 3x plus 1 only divided by 2, as many times as you can, and it would look like it's going to infinity, then all you have to do is pick the largest known prime as your seed number, which is currently the Mersenne 51st Mersenne prime, which is like 2 to the power of 85 million something. Let's just round it off right there. But the number itself, because that's the shorthand notation, the number itself is like 25 million digits long. So if you pick that 25 million digit long number, what would happen is that it would instantly shoot off towards infinity. 3x plus 1 divided by 2, 3x plus divided by 2, exactly that number of times that the 2 to the 85, 2 to the whatever. So in other words, if you plugged in that 25 million digit number into the Collatz game and let it go, it would 3x plus 1 only divided by 2, exactly the 85 million whatever times in a row before it ever integrated 3x plus 1, x4, or divided by 4, divided by 8. It would shoot up like it's going divergent. And it has to do about the nature of the game and those chains itself. But the number would get so big, but it's calculable because I think, if it's 25 million digits long and you're 3x plus 1 only divided by 2, 85 million times, you're probably adding another at least 30 million digits to it. So it's going to be 50 or 60 million digits long, but it's still calculable. I mean, they still have supercomputers that can do that. Now, my second thought example is more absurd than anything I've ever thought of. And it's something that's totally incalculable. It would take longer than the universe, the multiverse, and everything, although logically you know it to be true. And here is what it is. If you wanted to calculate a Collatz game that has exactly 3 steps, all you would have to do is pick the seed number 6 times 2 to the power of the quantity 3 minus 8. And that would give you a Collatz game that had exactly 3 steps in it. As I said before, if you don't know what 3 is, look it up. It's just one of the largest imaginable numbers that can't even be physically represented in the universe. But you can look it up if you want to. But I guess I'm a little long on time here. So anyway, this is my proof. I will talk to you guys in the future. It just won't be as much, and it won't be like screenshots anymore. It'll just be dialogue like this. But I'll tell you what's going on and how I'm doing with other stuff. But until then, as always, rule number one: do not touch other people without their consent, aka do not hurt each other. And rule number two: it's all about honesty. Lies are ticked down, aka try not to lie.